covered the Panthers for over 20 years. You can read his stuff at FloridaHockeyNow.com. And we have a lot of stuff to get to, George. I'm going to start with last night. It was a brutal loss. Seemed like they were going to at least get a point last night. Brutal loss ends up being. Is that the death knell for their playoff hopes, or you think that there's still a chance?
No, I mean, there's still a chance, but last night certainly felt that way, right? I mean, you get the game-tying goal by Sam Reinhart with 2 minutes left. You're certainly going to overtime, and then Anders Lee just kind of walks around the defense and pushes one past Bob, and that's just kind of how the season has gone for the Panthers. It's been just one thing after another. And listen, if you had back-to-back games like Buffalo and the Islanders back in November, December, you just chalk that up as, geez, the hockey gods haven't been with you the past couple of days, boys. Move on. But when you're at this point of the season, yeah, it feels a lot heavier.
And George, we were talking about it where the other, what was that, Saturday night's game? They were talking about how Bob's played more games in goal than any other goalie in the league, and the games they played because they've been in 3 Stanley Cups. Like we said, excuses versus explanations. Are they tired? Like, can you see a tired team out there skating on the ice, especially late in the third?
Well, we talked about this earlier in the season when people were wondering why the Panthers didn't look like the Panthers, and it's because of that heavy style that they play that is so successful. You just can't do it, all season long. It just wears on you so much, and I think we're seeing that now. They just can't play the way they want to play because they just don't have the juice to do so. The big, heavy forecheck, coming back checking defensively, it takes a physical toll, and that's why you get a lot of 2-1 games. Now you're seeing everything being 3-4 to 3-4, 4-3, 5-4, those kind of games because it's a little more loose, and that's not the Panthers' game. So yeah, there is certainly a lot that goes in, to say that they have played more games than anybody in NHL history over the last 3 years. No team in NHL history has played more than the Panthers have over the last 3 years. Because all the series went to 7, so there certainly is that haggardness, just fatigue. They just can't play the game they want.
And is it as simple as saying, GR, that at the end of games
we're doing
they're
that
not
already?
able?
We're going to call him GR.
GR, what's up?
It's GR.
Well, it's not GR. Nobody calls him that.
Is it as simple as
certain
saying
names connote using their initials? Crowder, CC, my son, DJ.
Right.
JJ.
I'll even give you a JR. Remember JR Richards from the Astros? JR Ewing from Dallas. Yeah. GR, no, we're not going to do that.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that, GR.
That's okay.
Is it as simple as saying the fatigue is what's holding them back late in games? Because we saw a bunch of stats yesterday, and I've read in Florida Hockey Now as well. Bob's save percentage in third periods, and I shouldn't say just Bob. I think it's just Panthers goaltending in the third period hasn't been great. I think as of today, it's the worst in the NHL, and they've given up more games late than they did over the first 3 years or the last 3 years combined. But is that more of lack of health, no Barkey, or is that just fatigue, or is it just a combination of everything?
It's certainly a combination because Barkov certainly plays a gigantic role because you remember how great the Panthers are when they had a lead going into the third period or when they took a lead in the third period. It was all but automatic. And now you're holding your breath. And how much time did Barkov spend on the ice in the third period of games? A lot of it. And same with Anton Lundell. Not having Seth Jones has hurt Florida these past couple months. They just now got Dmitry Kulikov back. So you've got a lot of guys playing out of position. Like you said, fatigue is certainly, when you look at those third period numbers, that's what it points to. It points to fatigue and just not getting the job done. They don't look fresh. You can blame the schedule, but every team in the NHL is playing this condensed schedule. Now, they may not have the travel deals that the Panthers do, but Yeah, they just look like a tired team out there, and having all the injuries and having to ask depth guys to be playing more minutes than they ever have in their lives, and maybe aren't really prepared for. Certainly taking its toll on the Florida Panthers right now.
So Lana mentioned the goaltending. Trade deadline is Friday. Is there any thought that they would move Sergei Bobrovsky?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on, and again, Bill Zito last year when we were talking about, well, how can you sign all these free agents? He goes, well, I know some things maybe you guys don't. And I think that situation is here now. Is Sergei Bobrovsky in the Florida Panthers' future plans? That's something they know that we necessarily don't. I think he is. I think, but maybe he's not, and he's expendable. But here is the problem. Sergei Bobrovsky has a $10 million salary cap hit. No team in the NHL that needs a goalie has the kind of money to take on that hit. Even if the Panthers take some stuff back, even if the Panthers keep 50% of the cap hit, that's still a $5 million player for teams that just don't have that kind of salary cap space. And are you really going to, take up whatever you've got left for what Sergei Bobrovsky's numbers have been? So I don't know that he's even movable at this point. But, Bill Zito, is a mad scientist when it comes to this kind of stuff. We don't know what he's got up his sleeve. I think Sergei Bobrovsky is, he's still going to be here next year. He's going to be here for the next couple years. Maybe it's just one of those kind of deals. So I would be surprised if he is traded.
Hell of a run, George. Like we've all been excited. 3 Stanleys, 2 cups. Like hell of a run. Is there any chance that Bill Zito coming into the trade deadline, coming into this offseason, like now it's time to retool. Now it's time to get a little younger, get a little cheaper, try to find a replacement for Kachuk, the replacement for Barkov, something of that nature, not a rebuild or reset, on a retool of what we know can work.
Yeah, I don't know, because there are all these guys on the Panthers, all their core guys, the guys you all know. There's 10 guys that are signed all the way up until 2030. That's the Florida Panthers championship window. This season is more like a blip, more like a write-off, right? Because they're just trying, next year the Florida Panthers are going to be Stanley Cup contenders. They're going to have all their players. They're going to be fresh. They are not looking to trade any of the big guys. They're looking to maybe deal off a couple of the small pieces and get ready for next year, because you don't give Brad Marchand a 6-year contract last summer if you're just going to tear things down now. All this is coming back for next year. So I think this is just one of those seasons where it just hasn't gone their way. I think Bill Zito was looking to see how this thing would start off. If they would have, gone, 2-0-1, or, won all 3 of these first, maybe he brings in some guys to offset. But now I think it's just going to be get rid of some of the pieces that don't fit and look ahead till next year.
Is the Panthers' playoff chances, if Sergei Bobrovsky was having a more Bob-like season, because obviously you don't have Sasha Barkov out there, and that's the big injury that you've dealt with all season. What if he's still not available, but Bob is having a more Bob-like season? Is this a different record at this point?
Yeah, I think you can say that Sergei Bobrovsky, you look at his numbers, they are not good. I mean, they are at the bottom of the NHL. And, a couple saves here or there. I think you could argue that the Panthers could have an extra 4, 5, 6 points in the standings. They're 8 points out right now. What if they were 2 points out? So that's manageable, right? That's where you thought the Panthers would be, within, a few points. We thought that the Panthers were going to be a playoff team, but not a, slam dunk. They're going to win the Atlantic by 20, none of that. We never thought that, but we thought they'd be in the top 8. 2 points out puts you in that, in that frame. 8 points doesn't. And I think you can look at the goaltending and say to yourself, boy, there's been a couple games where a couple saves here or there would have saved the Panthers and didn't. And, and there's been times where they've completely let him down too. So it's one of those weird things where he is part of a bigger picture, but you look at that goaltending position and you've got to make big saves. Sometimes you've got to steal some games, and Sergei's only stolen a couple this year. We're used to seeing him steal 5, 6, 7, 8, and that just hasn't happened.
What do you think the mark is in terms of like the game that maybe Paul Maurice and Zito kind of say, okay, it's just not going to happen because I believe their pick next year is top 10 protected or top 8 protected, one or the other. It would probably benefit them, George, if there was like a game where they say, okay, like now it's just going to be impossible. There's 21 left. Maybe it's the 17, the 16 game mark. If they can't turn this road trip around and rest everybody, right? Like, why would Marchie continue to play Kachuk? Like, rest everybody and essentially try to tank. I know it's crazy because you have the capability to three-peat, but if you can keep that top 10 pick, doesn't that make sense?
Yeah, well, we'll find out. I mean, we'll find out this week. I mean, it depends what Bill Zito does at the trade deadline. I mean, if there are some names on that, get moved out, or maybe they could be buyers and sellers at the same time, right? Because the Panthers next year there is no salary cap concerns. The Panthers have like $25 million under the cap next year, so maybe they make a trade for somebody to come in that's got term that's going to be part of it next year. I don't know, but. I think this week is the line of demarcation. We're going to find out if they start dealing off stuff, pieces, and they're giving up. If they start, like you said, resting Brad Marchand, giving him a maintenance day, workload, whatever. I think that's telling you that they're like, yeah, well, maybe we could win 7 in a row. But even if you do, the teams in front of you have to lose as well, and they just haven't been.
And who's going to tell Paul Maurice that they don't want to win and protect their 8th pick? Because I think Paul Maurice will punch you right in the face.
Yeah, but he's a realist too, and he's been through some bad years with a lot of bad teams. This is paradise for Paul Maurice. He's coached some really crummy teams in his career, and that's why he's the NHL's all-time losingest coach, which he's quick to point out to you because he's coached some real dogs. So I don't think it's going to be the end of the world for him because he's going to try and beat you with whatever he's putting on the ice. They're going to try and beat you, but he also knows that these are, veteran guys who have just laid it all out on the line for him and the Florida Panthers over the last 3 years. So if you've got to rest a couple of them, you know what? It's not the end of the world.
I was saying to Crowder, I mean, you think of the Billboard campaign from years past, the playoff guarantee. Maybe we just be realists, be pragmatists, do a Billboard campaign. Let's all go to Cancun and have like Kachuk and Marchie and Barkov, have them in like Hawaiian shirts, and just say, listen, it was fun, but let's relax and we'll see you next season.
Here's the blueprint, right? Yeah,
why not? George Richards, read his work at FloridaHockeyNow.com. We always love talking to you, George. Thank you.
Hey, good talking to you guys. We'll see you later.
I feel confident that Sergei Bobrovsky is not going to be moved, so that's relaxing. And I feel confident that they're not going to make any wholesale changes, so that's relaxing to me. I think George Richards was the voice of reason there. I feel good about the notion, like where you said, hey, would they consider retooling or whatever? He's like, nah, everybody's locked in, locked up. They weren't going to sign these long-term deals with people if they were going to make any kind of moves. And I think Bob will be here as well. So good news all around for Florida Panthers fans.
I like it.